Right on. Welcome to anyone who's just come in the last few minutes. We just introduced everyone in Soul Center. I'm so glad to see everyone's here. Um, for today's meditation, um, over a week ago, I read an article in Lion's Roar online, and it was by Valerie Mason Johns. And she developed a Buddhist recovery program, which is the 8 steps, aren't, or maybe it's the 10, but it's in England. And it's really, really tied in, I think, with Tibetan Buddhism, because whenever I see their stuff, there's always these Tibetan chants and everything. And that's actually part of how I got into it, because I was using that a lot with my 12-step recovery before I came to Recovery Dharma. So I started doing a lot of Tibetan chants with them. Um, and I read the article, and and I always have problems pronouncing things. It's not like I've taken a class and heard the pronunciation. I should do that sometime. I've read a lot of books. Um, just so you know, I got a degree in literature and didn't realize that epitome and epitome were two separate words till I got out of college. And epitome, I looked at it, I go, wow, epitome means the same thing as epitome. And I go, oh, I've been saying epitome too. I was saying it. People had to be looking at me like, what? So a lot of my pronunciation of these words in Pali mainly, but sometimes Sanskrit and Tibetan, Japanese, not so good. I do a little better at Japanese pronunciation. So I'm going to say Anusayas, Anusayas. Um, and what she was writing about, she always writes about Buddhism in respect to recovery. That's her special topic, and that's what I really, really liked reading about. And she wrote that all these anusayas are tied in with ancestral trauma, intergenerational trauma, which to me seems to be a lot like ancestral trauma, and epigenetic trauma. So not only the trauma from our childhood and our own lives, but the lives of our ancestors. And there's scientific evidence that shows that's true. If things happened a few generations ago, it switches off and on certain markers in our genetics. If things were like if there was a low amount of food, it would switch on people's genetics to want to eat more and to hold more calories in, so they're more likely to be overweight. And that can go for 2 or 3 generations because those genes are turned on. And as the food is plentiful, they get turned off again. And that's not an issue. So epigenetics is a very real thing. And so that's how you can have intergenerational trauma. And it reminds me, when I look at my addiction, there's all sorts of ancestry involved. And most definitely, I was influenced by observing use of those things in my family, uses of food as a smoother for my life. Other people did it, thank you. Um, and alcohol and drugs, even. Other people used drugs, and the drugs I used were pretty much the same drugs they used. But when I look back, my dad and his dad and his dad's dad and his dad's dad were all alcoholic. And it does get into the generation where when I was recovering from alcoholism, I wasn't only recovering from my own trauma and my own behaviors, but I was recovering from something whose karma was going through generations and coming to me. It came to my shore, and I got to work with it. I could say, this isn't my fault, I shouldn't have all this, and I did. I did. But it was pointless. If I didn't get over it, then I wouldn't recover from that. And the eating disorder aspect, my mother, her father and mother, my dad's mom, um, and you can see other people that it goes down through those generations. And so I did learn from learning the habits in my family, but there's also a genetic and a spiritual, as well as a sociological effect of that addiction, that it goes down through the years. So I can get caught in those things. And what that brings me to is I'm 100% responsible for my recovery. And I need to recognize that I inherited many, many, many good things and many, many bad things. And some of those things can really cause a lot of suffering for me. A guy named Buddha discovered that 2,600 years ago. And I'm sure when he was sitting down, he could recognize all of the things he inherited that caused him suffering in his mind and in his body. So she goes on, and when I take notes for groups, I tend to write sideways and up and down and all over the place. It's like I treat the page like a big square and just write around. The Anyasaya are obsessions or latent tendencies. And she said that from the readings in the Pali, that these were sensual passion, uncertainty, conceit, resistance, views, passion for becoming, and ignorance. You don't have to remember all those. I definitely don't have all of those remembered. I just read them. But I did look at them and I did think about each of those as they came up. Sensual passions, how that is an obsession for me. Uncertainty, how that's an obsession for me. Resistance, how that's an obsession for me. Conceit, how that is an obsession for me. My views, how that's an obsession. My passion for becoming, Mr. Fix Myself, that's an obsession. And ignorance is definitely an obsession for me. So for today's meditation, I'm going to go through these things that deal with the Anyasaya. And I'm just going to read and then give us a minute to just reflect on it. So it's a reflective meditation to breathe and think about the sentence you just heard. And I'll read it all together and then I'll read it one by one. So this is what we're going to meditate on. Watch your thoughts. They become habits. Watch your habits. They become stories. Watch your stories. They become excuses. Watch your excuses. They become relapses. Watch your relapses. They become diseases. Watch your diseases. They become vicious cycles. Watch your vicious cycles. They become your wheel of life. So I see everyone in the room and everyone's getting comfortable in a noble posture, whether you're lying down or sitting in a chair or on the ground. Take a few deep breaths. I'll just take a little time to reflect on each of these as I read them. Watch your thoughts. They become habits. Watch your habits. They become stories. Watch your stories. They become excuses. Watch your relapses. They become diseases. Watch your diseases. They become vicious cycles. Watch your vicious cycles. They become your wheel of life. Namaste. Thanks. Thank you, everyone, for being my teacher today. I really appreciate it. And I'm just going to end with a simple dedication of merit. May all beings be happy and peaceful. May all beings be healthy and strong. May all beings be safe and protected. May all beings live with ease. Namaste.